Good evening. Well, the East Lamphere Township Planning Commission meeting. I'm Darrell Peoples, Chairman of the Planning Commission. Also present this evening is Huskin. To my left, Randy Wright to my immediate left. Oh, excuse me, Randy Patterson to my myself, and then Sarah Ryder and Jason Dagan. Also present is Colin Seasholz, the Director of Planning, Dave Sinopoli, zoning officer, served for residential, and Alicia Hare, zoning officer for commercial properties. At this point, if we would all stand up and pledge allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So, in addition to the individuals in the room, I believe we have one person by Zoom. Can you hear us on the Zoom? It's okay. Thank you. And as recorded message said, this is being recorded. So, and as understand, the microphones are very sensitive. So say what you want heard. Otherwise, on your own. So, first item on the agenda is approval of the minutes of the August 15th Planning Commission meeting. Having read those, are there any comments or changes? I have one. On second paragraph of page 2, the date of the Dave Miller Associates review letter should be August 2nd. Same as in the first paragraph, not the 8th. There are no other comments or changes. I'll look for a motion to approve. Motion. We have the motion by Dr. Huskin.
No second.
And we have a second by Jason. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Unanimous, all 5. Item old business, none this evening. Under new business, first item 2023-17, Rockville parcel 4, 2472 Lincoln Highway East, land development plan. And is there somebody present? If you could come forward, identify yourself. Welcome.
Good evening, Chris Finarchi with RGS Associates. As you stated, the product that we're here this evening for is the applicant MP Lancaster LLC. It is part of the Rockville project, redevelopment that we've been before the Planning Commission Board of Supervisors for the master plan. This is really the first step. This is the first redevelopment on the perimeter of the project. The address is as stated 2472 Lincoln Highway East. The subject tract is about 1.6 acres and it's within the C3 commercial zoning district. So the purpose of why we're here again this evening is the redevelopment of that tract. The site is located at the southeast intersection of Willowdale Drive and Lincoln Highway. The product, as you probably know, was a diner. The Rockville Diner is on that corner. So the applicant has already started the process of the demolition, which I believe is actually down to basically the pavement, some surface material there, and looking to replace it with about a 3,980 square feet restaurant with a drive-through, associated parking and utilities. So the plan that you see up there, proposing the site plan. The access, if you look at the northeast corner there, that's the access out onto Route 30. That essentially remains unchanged. We're just picking up where the curb returns are into the site, as well as the southwest corner. There's an existing area where we're just extending. You can see that kind of lighter area of the pavement there. We're introducing some new pavement and redoing that driveway. And then on the southeast corner is a new driveway onto that further access drive that exists out there today. Stormwater management from the project, we manage primarily through a reduction in the existing impervious. We often see these with redevelopment projects where historically there's a whole lot of impervious to the property. The new codes and designs remove a lot of that impervious to the point where it actually makes up for that stormwater management. However, we will have some inlets and conveyance piping on the property. And then we take that through a water quality structure as well to address the water quality component of your stormwater management ordinance. The site is less than an acre when you're looking at the disturbance on this lot. Again, the whole lot's on 1.6 acres. The disturbance is less than 1 acre. We did, however, prepare an ENS plan and supply that to the township engineer, as well as the conservation district. In this case, we do not have an NPDES permit. Public water and sewer will continue to serve the site through the Township Sewer Authority and City of Lancaster. And we're utilizing existing water lateral and then using the new proposed sewer lateral to connect into one of the existing manholes. So that's kind of a quick overview, again, being a small property proposed for the site. We did have with the application some modifications that I'm happy to walk through those. If you're ready, we also, on our resubmission of the application to address the initial township comments, responded to the Lancaster County Planning Commission comments. And then the latest letter we received from your engineer, DMA, dated September 5th. We've gone through that. You've seen that. It's very clean, I'll say. And we do get concerns without pressing those out. So with that brief overview, I'm happy to try any questions you may have on the program.
How big was the diner that was there, square footage wise? Do you know? Just out of curiosity.
About 6,000 square feet.
Review flow of traffic through this to drive through and quick pickup.
Yeah, sure. So I guess it depends on which someone come in. So if someone would come in off of Route 30 at the top, I would suggest they swing around the building, come in here if they're doing the drive through, or if they're doing it to try to pick up, or if they're coming off Route 30 to be patron for inside, they could go in anywhere in the parking spaces that they choose. And then if someone's coming in off of Willowdale, whether they're going south or coming north, they can come in, I would suggest here. Now there is the extra drive here as well that they could choose. But I think that was more to maintain circulation, maybe coming from this side, particularly when you look at the redevelopment that's proposed with all the apartments.
To direct someone that can hold, I'm assuming, or is it?
Yeah, I know there was a sign package that typical with a. I think it's really the public who this is going to be. I shouldn't say, but this is a national tenant, and I know they always have sign packages for just your point for wait bubble to drive through.
You can't tell us what it is.
You know, you're pretty sure it's out. But
Yeah, sure we know.
yeah, and really the sensitivity is nothing more than just to prevent some other retailer from trying to sweep in. It's not that they're trying to keep it from the public, it's more just protecting them.
Access or road entrance, parking lot entrance on the northeast off of Lincoln Highway. Is that just limited to certain traffic, just in or out, or is something instead of what
It's
is?
the existing full access, and we're not altering it in any way. We're just on our property, we're picking up from the curb raise returns inward. In fact,
Are you allowed to, if you're heading west on 30, you're allowed to cut across the lanes and turn in there?
well, it has the, I can almost see on the area below, It does have going to the left turn. Now that's really depicted in this intersection, but there's not any type of restriction that would prevent someone from making that left turn there. You do have that center lane allowing that movement to happen.
Do you have to get any zoning relief for this?
You can see the plan we were looking at. Is there any wrap on the site?
That was one of the comments from the county. I didn't see that in their comment letter. Usually they will indicate that they feel appropriate.
No, I'm surprised I didn't. See it. But
Yeah, I want to
the reason I'm asking is, as you said, this is first phase. But major part of the new development is what, 500 new housing units that you're going to be bringing people into the site. There are trails around Rockvale that are being developed and proposed. And I think this is maybe the units further back on the site, maybe a little far to walk, but it'd be an easy bicycle ride. So I don't know if a bike rack would be a good idea on the site for somebody to come to the restaurant and pick up food or go in. I assume you're going to be able to go in and eat as well as drive through, but I didn't, anyway, on the plan we had, I couldn't see.
Yeah, no, I can make a note, talk to the owner about it. I don't know if they're going to get online tonight or not, but it's something we can certainly do.
Yeah, because a lot of new paths have been developed in this area and are part of the Route 30 plan. And I reference for Dave Miller on September 5th. And there were 5 waivers or modifications, and you said you have no issue complying with those.
Right, yep, we've gone through those. The township engineer is recommending granting those modifications.
Now, or no accused. Whether you can work with presenting officer.
Yes, I can run down those quickly. The first one there about clarifying that drive through area, just a rapid pickup. We'll add a note to the plan on that. And then the second one was about loading. So the applicant in this case has gotten a letter from the tenant to show that the loading is not necessary. They've evaluated this and they have to get sites across the country. So they're saying that and deliveries occur off hours and so forth. So we'll provide that documentation. And then the parking, not unusual that you have parking exceeding that 125% notation that you guys have in your ordinance. You know, we as designers anymore rely on the users. They know their business is best. So we always say if they need that parking, we're going to provide it. And you know, again, it's a small site. And as I pointed out at the beginning, we're actually reducing the impervious on the site. So.
Two subdivision land development ones. Something. Sanitary sewer capacity, et cetera.
I heard from both sewer and water.
Yeah, that's my hand. Very Congress. Account review of all the sport. The easement shared for the access.
If we actually responded to those in our last submission, included responses in that letter to the township. The agreements would be taken care of prior to recording. The lighting, we're trying to utilize the existing lighting that is on the site, being that this is a redevelopment. Much of the parking area is trying to be retained. Much of the asphalt area is trying to be retained. So we're trying to really work with that existing footprint of what's out there. And then they will have some lighting that comes with their structure. And then the last one there about the existing conditions and demolitions, it identifies any features to be retained.
Questions? Comments or questions from general public in reference to this plan? Hearing none. I'll look for a motion.
Like to make a motion. 2023-17, Rockville parcel 4. The Miller letter, September 5th, 2023, and also the county letter dated August 4th.
So we have a motion, and we have the second. Any questions? This question on the motion in regard to the bikeway.
Want to put it in the motion, you can.
Well, it's your motion.
So I understand that. He was going to take it back. So
Talk about it with you. I don't see them having an issue with it. I just can't see for them.
Mhm.
I guess your motion, does that then you need to separately act on the modification, or is that part of the motion? Okay, thank you.
So we'll take a vote. We have the motion and the second. Barry,
I
and Randy is an aye. Sarah, Jason. So, unanimous on the motion. Thank you.
Thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Item A, the next two items on the agenda. Under new business B and C. I believe B a little bit longer discussion than C. Both parties are in agreement. Those in take the 2051 Lincoln Highway East next, or
I would appreciate that.
are you? Oh, okay.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate that.
Identify yourself.
Yes, my name is Christopher Wiley with Wiley Landscape Picture Consulting. And I am here this evening to represent Shikha Patel of LAXMI Incorporated. This is for the Avid Hotel, the existing Avid Hotel that's out. Its current address is 2151 Lincoln Highway East. The site is 1.9 acres and is currently within the C2 general. The land development plan here, I'll screen here. So In the second image, Shaker is proposing to do a building addition to the second, third. This plan development was in here a few years ago, and to respond, is that working?
Maybe it's better.
I apologize. To respond to the needs of guests, they're having a really hard time renting single king rooms. And to what he would like to do is take about 83-foot portion of the building and take the face of the building off and push it out 4 foot 11 inches. And that will allow him to expand the rooms dimensionally to turn those single kings into double queens. So that's what the building addition shown in dark there. And the second image is showing that 400 square foot building addition. And again, that is on the second, third, and fourth stories. So it's cantilever, but there are going to be some support pieces that come down to the ground. So, but as far as the floor area itself, that's only happening on the second through the fourth. Access to the site is going to remain unchanged. We are not going to do anything to affect any of the existing number of parking spaces on the site. We're not changing the number of hotel rooms, which is what the parking requirement in the township is based on. So therefore, we didn't submit any traffic impact study. From a utility standpoint, the changes to the rooms aren't affecting any of the site sewer and water service. So there's no change there. From a stormwater standpoint, we are the new 4.5 foot section of the roof is going to continue the pitch of the existing roof. So the whole roof slopes down to the middle of the building to a series of drains. And so those existing drains were checked for size for that additional 412 square feet. And then that all drains onto the roof. And then there's an underground detention basin, which is stormwater management facility 2 out in the front parking lot. And we analyzed that system, the additional 412 square feet, to make sure that there were going to not need to be any modifications to the outlet structure or the size of the storage facility underground. There is no NPDES permit for this project. There is not, nor are we required to receive a ENS permit from the Conservation District. Our disturbance is less than 5,000 square feet. As part of this project, there's no earthwork being proposed other than the digging of footers. As part of this project, there are units being offered for dedication. And as a result of that, there's not a financial security requirement for this particular building addition. And then the previous wetland traffic and geology wetland traffic reports were not updated from the previous project, as this has no impact on those reports. As part of this project, we did request 2 modifications of subdivision and land development ordinance. One was to go to the prelim plan to go to the final plan, and the second was to reduce a small portion of existing sidewalk to accommodate the footers for the new building overhang. If you guys have any questions about those modifications, I'd be more than happy to review this and go through those. And if you have any other questions about the plan,
How many rooms is the 412 split? Like, what is that, 7 rooms? Is it, how many rooms is that?
I don't have a picture in front of me. I'm thinking it's 5 to 6 times 3 floors.
Any other?
I did receive the latest comment letter from BMA dated September 5th, which line was the date of the waiver as well. There was we did get one LCPC, which was just changing department Commission.
Use. Thank you for your reply to the previous Dave Miller letter and cleaning it up.
Really?
Just having basically 3 comments. Reasons. There's no further discussion. I'll look for a motion. In reference to Plan 2023-23, 2155 Lincoln Highway East.
Motion that the supervisors, they approve plan 2023-23, 2151 Lincoln Highway East. County Planning Commission letter dated September 1st.
Yeah, Ben, is there a second? Please, that'd be a second and questions? Not on for Mary. Aye. Randy. Aye. Jason. And so, 5 days. Vote pass.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Thanks.
Sorry.
I'm such a failure.
Yes.
You for your helping us in switching and back to Plant 20. The Lincoln Highway East.
Together with that basic image.
Right. Again, with the company, I'm Justin Romeo, and that's Tom Sicklefield. We're here to discuss the text amendment for zone D3 as it relates to Lanford Associated 1,000 square foot shopping center, which was formerly an enclosed mall. But years ago, enclosed mall, so this particular location, finding it's a very similar trend. For that's the most recent one we're closed. We just recently closed and self-storage there as well. $7,000 and for 80,000 square foot project. Reason that out is just so you understand. It's going to be. Currently, I think the feasibility project is got to be somewhere between 10 feet and 80,000 square feet, we've got 2,000 square feet, but that gives us the possibility in 2 floors in W2. W2 ground floor is 39,000 square feet. Self-storage facility, not like the mini warehouses. This is all going to be climate controlled. All the mechanicals are already there. Exit will be through a common area next to the property. Parking shouldn't be an issue because the parking spaces are already there. It won't change anything. No need to really in development. Itself, while fully occupied, it's everything to do with the retail components. And I say retail components, this space, this space, and this space realistically serve no retail possibilities. W1 has a rear access only, no visibility, no sign ban, and honestly, no retailer would take it because it can't be seen from it. Fortunate enough for us, we actually just did a deal with PennDOT. PennDOT took a portion of the space. They didn't take the whole thing. They took, I believe, 4,000 square feet total, which left a little bit behind it, where there was some mechanicals in place such as woodwiser and water valves. This space here is a mezzanine space. It's actually behind the alleys. Again, no retail component as visibility is hampered. Not only that, given the low ceilings on the main mezzanine, it would serve no retail purpose at 7 feet. You're not going to get any shelving units in there. My kids can stand there and jump up and touch it. This space here, W2, it's our largest footprint. While it could have served some purpose, Burlington is a longstanding tenant. They're doing quite well, and we see on there. So as it stands now, there's no real visibility, no sun man, and one way into this building from the front. That's a 3-man, 4-foot wide door, which doesn't actually serve a purpose for customers in and out of the building. And as you can tell, there's tenants on both sides, means I can't widen it now. That brings us to the tax amendment. We see self-storage, or at least climate-controlled self-storage, as being the only viable option for this property at this time. Basically. And when I say this property, I'll keep it specific to this section of the property. So I'll go for some of the things that we've already discussed. And
Work with the counter professionals, we've agreed to limit it to, you're asking for a text change amendment. We've agreed it would be only a conversion of the building, or part of the building, it had to be in a shopping center. It had to have at least, the whole shopping center had to be at least 300,000 square feet. It had to have direct access from Route 30. It could be not more than 1,000 square feet with a footprint no greater than 60,000 square feet. It would not be more than 2 non-contiguous locations. It would be no outdoor access to individual units. They would all be self-storage, would not be a mini warehouse, as Justin said previously. And we'd only be in the rear of the center. There would be no entrance from the front. It would not allow recreational vehicles, boats, campers, or trailers. Couldn't store pets, animals, hazardous substances. And we would have public utilities. We agreed to light it. We agreed to have security. We agreed it would be video monitored 24 hours a day. There'll be no business operating from the storage units. So we feel that this is the only use that can be used for this rear of the town center. I think it's very non-impactful. It'd be a great use of the space. Benefit the community. This used to be a interior mall. This used to be more, and this used to be 100,000 square feet of interior malls. There was few stores on both sides. Most of this area was, I guess, within the old food court area. Burlington Code had a big chunk of it, and they downsized about 5 years ago and gave this space back. So that's sort of why we took it back at the time. There's no front access. PennDOT took the strangest space, which then leaves this in the remaining.
Yeah, the Harbor Freight expanded too then, just recently, haven't they?
Yes, slightly in the back. So they took them in the back. As Justin said, PennDOT took a little more space in the back too.
Since Burlington gave that back 5 years ago, it's been vacant, most of that.
Correct, yeah,
Space.
there's nothing we could do. It used to be all together, trying to find one retailer to take the whole thing, and it just did not work out. We came across PennDOT, thought that was a great use. I think it's beautiful in there. I guess you saw Hobby Lobby, and I think they said 5 weeks today.
end of October.
And you remember Hobby, I think they took 3 separate spaces. That was the old Penn National School, AC Moore, and then head space in the middle. So I think we spent close to $500,000 leveling all the floors, because there used to be 4 or 5 different levels throughout the space. So we can be creative when we have it in retail space. That's we've sort of said that there's no way this can be used for retail.
This is configured, it hinders itself. In place, right? It got one front end. if you guys want to more, but again, you have to know it's on landowner, and then it goes to the baseball diamond. Well, one floor could, this plane's only 337 on a single floor.
Average size is.
I
I
want to
want
go,
to 7 by 10, the 10 by 10s mostly. Right, or is there any bigger?
yeah, we can do that. 7.5 by 16, they're gonna be inches.
They're using existing configurations.
Well, that's an existing floor, that's 375, but you last.
337.
337.
Yeah.
So we spoke, you said you were looking at potentially a upper level.
We still having those discussions, but we've met with several, we've had conversations with several engineers. And from a practicality standpoint, we're still trying to vet the possibility.
We want the flexibility.
Correct.
It has to do with roof sizing and,
Additional elevators, they can trenching down.
and once again, we don't want to have variances like used to be across the street from our mall. We're looking for first class, almost like a retail look. That's sort of, that's what it's gonna look in our, Pottstown location. That's the same sort of look we want to have.
And that 750,000 number that I gave you, that's just for interior fit out. That has nothing to do with the outside landscaping that we were doing there, nothing to do with the facade, the signage. I haven't gotten into those numbers back yet.
That's on the rear of the building.
This is at the rear of the shop.
Yeah.
The thoughts on the rear.
Yeah, basically, yeah.
So there is a. This is actually the court entrance to the shopping center. You're literally opposite of the major highway. So for us at this property, Route 100 is running alongside of it. You can't see it from Route 100. In the winter, you might get lucky to see it from Route 422, but I doubt it.
Plan you had. You showed 3 vacant
This one.
units, yes, the 3 yellows.
Yeah,
So your one comment here is that the outdoor facility will not be located in more than 2 non-contiguous locations.
You're hoping to do it here, as we talked about in here.
So you're also looking to potentially do all 3 of those.
Well, just these, just these.
Yeah.
It's not here, it's been absorbed by PennDOT.
these are just my exhibits for the first meeting. I don't want to change any.
All of this. It's these two.
The idea is they would check in at the big space. And then they'd have to drive over to the other space to, if they had a unit within that other.
Majority of the people are going to take this space. This will be your larger units. And the only reason I'm saying this would be larger units is because it has a loading dock. So the guys that need to unload your large couches. You're more than your 5 by 5 or your 10 by 5 unit, right? Your quicker turnover, I should say.
You don't really have to check in. I mean, most people are gonna have, once you get your unit, you'll have your key card and you'll know exactly where to go. You'll have access to the door you're supposed to go to and only you're supposed to. You'll have access to your unit.
Everybody ID required for everybody to have their own storage, or ID is not required? If you,
Our Q's fire manager. They don't just give keys, so you have to have.
so you guys will actually, you have to have an ID to.
Yeah. Taking cash.
This is a third party management company at the county locations.
I don't know off the top of my head, but they're Malcolm is considered a strong real estate developer. Just, we develop shopping centers. This is our first, well, now, second go at, self-storage, so we're trying to learn from pros.
It doesn't really have anything to do with the text amendment, but the lady that on fact.
Well, what Beverly Code requires, you're gonna manage.
I'm speaking more to the environment.
There's three of them.
There is some landscaping currently. Yeah, that's what I said.
Yeah.
There is some trees.
Oh, you said. Somehow the world's coming.
So can I ask a general question?
Sure.
Why did you go the route of the text amendment?
My original conversation with the township suggested that be the path I go.
I think in our last discussion, May or June with you, we had some concerns from planning commission regards to adding this type of activity to the C3 and the impact it could have across the township potentially. And I think you addressed some of these concerns. I don't know if you saw the county comments.
We just started looking, just started reading. And I have more time, I could do that, but
I think they accused it of could be potentially spot zoning.
Well,
That's the comment I saw.
and some of your specific comments for the organ of self-storage facilities in the D3 are very specific. I guess from this side, I'm concerned how the township could, if challenged, potentially defend that. Because really, there's no other place this can happen. And we already do have self-storage facilities throughout the township. It is allowed.
I'm not sure you have self-storage, especially where.
Well, we have provisions that allow for it and other,
4 different districts.
yeah. Clear on your table, actually 5. I think, yeah, 5, because last year, the multi-use was added. So 5 areas within the township that do allow it in the zoning. Because there was an amendment last year to the multi-use to allow it by right, which is what you're looking for. But it's kind of unique, I mean, with what C3 is written for, to allow this in that area, it's really for larger industrial, because we have C1, C2, C3. So the challenge for the township to,
It's also a challenge for us. We don't know what to do with the space at this point, too. It's just,
Yeah.
you know.
So what I'm looking at, it's not the project itself, the reuse of a mall, I get it. How do you reuse space that's dead space?
Correct.
I'm looking more at the zoning change to allow the project to move forward as opposed
Right, we
to.
started first, as we looked down this path by the township, this is the way to go, it was a text change amendment, so we're just following what we were
I understand.
told to do. So,
I understand.
we agree.
Supervisor meeting that you have and planning commission has to make a recommendation.
Right.
And we have to look at the zoning ordinance. Of course. So I guess the one.
First time we were here, we didn't try to do, we weren't trying to.
Here for that, right? I'm not going to speak to anything that was said there because I wasn't here, so I can't. I just have a question. Why can't a conditional use work here instead of a text amendment?
I guess it could, if that's what's recommended, yeah.
I'm just gonna tell you, my concern is, I'm on the same board as the county planning, department. That to me is so specific, it's spot zoning. If someone would challenge it, to me, it's spot zoning. I don't know how you get around that. Because of the specificity is, as I said, if you look at that C3 district, there's no other building in that district, I believe, that this would apply to, except maybe Tanger. Is there a place in Tanger it would apply to?
well, if it wasn't limited to 462.
Yeah. So
I think Target said,
that's what I'm not struggling with your idea of reuse. I need to make that clear.
right,
I'm struggling with doing a text amendment that is so specific and creating something by right that is so specific, as opposed to, as I've already commented to staff, by special exception. So that the zoning hearing board still has the opportunity to review, neighbors still have the opportunity to come talk about the project. And you look at the overall thing, not just from this perspective. So that's what I'm struggling with. I just want to be clear. I'm not struggling with your project. This has nothing to do with that for me. Is this the best approach for the township to take to allow your project to move forward? I just want you to know where you're struggling.
Appreciate it.
So just to be clear, so when you said conditional use, you meant like still a zoning change, but instead of it being a use permitted by right, it would be a conditional use?
So township supervisors, I think the way this East Lampeter township would run the conditional use hearing.
Yeah.
And then allow the use based on the results of that hearing.
So it would still be a zoning change, but instead of being a use permitted by right, it would be a conditional use. That's what you're thinking. Okay.
And tied to the property.
Yeah, yeah,
As opposed to the entire district.
yeah. I mean, I completely agree with everything that you said. That again, I don't have a problem with the project. I just feel really uncomfortable with changing the zoning for this one specific project. I also feel a little uncomfortable about having potentially 1/3. Am I correct that you really could use 1/3 of the building for this? For 300,000 square feet? 100.
Ground floor.
Okay,
And then about 45,000 square feet of ground floor area.
okay,
If we go multi-stories, it would be up to 100,000 square feet.
yeah. I mean, I said this last time, the only thing about the project that makes me feel a little uncomfortable was if there's that many units and the driving in and out and the parking, it feels a little tight, but again, if this was not a use permitted by right and this was a conditional use, then that could be vetted in that
Right.
in that area, or a special exception where the zoning hearing board deals with it.
Thank you. Okay, yeah, just the chart that you have and what that's in and the proposed ordinance does allow to either do it by right, special exception, or conditional use. So it may be a similar information, but it would not be under by right, but it would be permitted as a conditional use. And then Randy was very clear in indicating that it would just be for applicant for approval with the hearing, et cetera, for that site without the quote unquote spot zoning. That leads to, and I had the same feeling, which I before we saw the county comments, we didn't get till like 4:30 today. So it was very new to us, and it was a quick read of their 5 pages, but and I'm same as Randy and Sarah both have said, I like what you're doing, but how we allow it is the challenge.
Our biggest challenge now is that we've been at this now for almost 6 months. We come in, we try to follow everything we're told to do, and now 6 months later, we're still nowhere. We may have to start the process. Just.
Recommendation, so this.
I understand. Right. Our bosses are watching, so you can hear me whine on camera. 320,000 total.
That's the number you have, allow you to use other portions of the building for storage.
No, nothing. That's also,
But you could subdivide all of those spaces so that forward base space.
you also.
Is that other restriction, would that limit you from?
Especially if you're dividing the. We go 2 stories.
Yeah. Instead of building. Subdivide.
I think 8,000 feet of ground. Yep, perfect ground floor.
So your existing yellow lot.
50 and this is 47 and 8. 40 and 76, yeah.
I feel like the way this is written is a little confusing to me. Like the maximum gross floor area of not more than 100 square feet with a footprint no greater than 60,000 square feet. With the shopping center with a minimum gross leasable area of at least 300,000 square feet.
So
I feel like you're using a lot of different,
the whole shopping centers be 300,000. The floor area can only be 60,000. You can only, do a second story, you get to 100,000.
Yeah.
Once again, the water is right. So they have to show.
Yeah, and that's that. When I started reading through this, I went back and read it again, second, third time, then I understood it, but it is so specific as where in the beginning of G,
Warning signs.
yeah. It was unique to this site, very unique to this site. Generally unique, but it ended up being very unique. And not that anybody will. But maybe an avenue for putting this other places. Yeah, which is a challenge to administer.
I don't know, I mean, even, talking about. If you kept this same language and you made it as a special exception or conditional use, I still feel a little uncomfortable because it's really tailored just for this site. That's just my personal opinion, but.
And for me, if it's conditional use, the specific language goes away.
Yeah.
And then as property by property is reviewed within the C3 district. And, that makes me more comfortable. Right. The specific language disappears and it's just a conditional use. You're going to apply for it for that property. It's only going to apply to that property. Even if you sell, it'll still apply to that property. The new owner can come in and still run the operation the same way. That's my.
Yeah, some of it would still be there. But things would be moved from by right to conditional use on the chart. It would be conditional use in reference to converting existing shopping mall to self-storage without the details, the specifics. It'd be much higher level, more general. In a sense, the work you've done could be very applicable with, deleting things. And, I think some of us have other notes, but I have some challenges with trying to figure out what you use for the parking. In the commercial, there's no provision for self-storage, but there is for the shopping center. And if you use that, it's a tremendous amount of parking you need, but I don't know how, in my mind, right or wrong, how that could be, how you could use the parking on the front of the building to meet the needs for a rear access that is with no front entrance. But I think it might, and I think you may have used the self-storage provision under industrial for the parking, if that's applicable. I don't, and if self-storage considered industrial, I'm not quite sure how, and I'm not, but how a lawyer would read the interpretation. Maybe some clarity would be needed there, but that may come later. Yeah.
I believe currently the shopping center needs parking for retail currently.
Mhm.
So that's more in excess of self-storage with everything.
But you have no access to the rear of the building from the parking.
There's
parking spots.
You
Yeah, there's parking in the.
Which would be more than adequate for what the self-storage is actually needed.
and
So I'm just speaking for myself now, not for anyone else. I can't support it because. Problem with the project. So can a motion?
Can y'all just sign a building permit?
Too many times. And then can the motion be to the supervisors that our recommendation is to not do a text amendment, but do a zoning amendment to a special exception or a conditional use? My preference would be conditional use. And encourage the owner to move forward with that conditional use for the reuse of the building as presented. Is that too complicated of a motion?
I think there would still have to be some component of text amendment, being that it's not currently allowed. And that is, so there'd be still be that, but yeah, if your recommendation was to allow it via conditional use hearing.
I don't think the motion is the proper place to specify why. I don't want to put you in a position of spot something. I'm willing to make a motion just to get something on the floor.
Yeah, I think half of your comment now is part of the minutes.
Yeah.
And they are. And from my knowledge, they are shared with the supervisors, so they will be made aware of our discussion prior to you meeting with them. But yes, I think I'm with you that the actual motion would be to what was presented to us as a zoning text amendment.
Yeah, so the motion and we can play with this and then I'll actually make a motion. The motion is that the text amendment as presented, not our recommendation, planning commission recommendations, the text amendment as presented, not be approved. But as in exchange of that or in place of that, that the planning commission would recommend that the zoning ordinance be changed for C3 to allow conditional use. Conditional use. So I know that would require another change further back where conditional uses are talked about in this zoning district, I believe as well, to specifically say self-storage. So that would be the basis of my motion. For making it, I just wanted to open that up for conversation.
I was waiting for you to finish. Before I ask for a second to that motion, if there is. The motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
I feel a little uncomfortable saying we support something we haven't seen. So I feel like.
Or it would be adding self-storage as a conditional use in the C3 district.
Yeah, but I think we would still want to see, I know we would. I think you still need to see some requirements as a conditional use for it to even get to that point.
So I read most of the other conditional uses for C3 and they're fairly general and generic. They aren't specific.
Yeah.
And the conditional use hearing would allow for the opportunity for the supervisors to add conditions, which could be exactly like your text amendment or the conditional use on this property. That's what I was thinking, because I couldn't find anything in the zoning ordinance that was specific enough under conditional use, but recognizing that self-storage would need to be listed there. And for me, the conditional use might be better than a special exception. Because a special exception is only to the zoning hearing board, as opposed to the supervisors conducting that hearing. That's
Colin can correct me if I'm not clear, but any conditional use proposal would still come before the planning commission before it goes to the supervisors. So we would have an opportunity to review that. And if there's any specific concerns on that proposal, we would have an opportunity. We would see it again if it goes that route.
Mhm.
You're
Is that-
clearly willing to accept conditions.
I mean, I feel like I would just feel more comfortable if it was a conditional use, because I definitely have seen conditional uses that have criteria you have to meet before you can even apply for it. So for example, it has to be in the back of a shopping center, or, you know, just some kind of criteria versus just
Some
if
of these
you,
conditions.
yeah, somehow incorporate some of those into a condition. I'm not telling you what to do. I'm just,
Yeah.
this is what I would do. But
It's so specific.
yeah. Not, it would not be this specific, but it would incorporate some of those concepts.
And if this, I'll need to check with the township solicitor as well, but if this specific, the way it's written now changes at all, it may have to get re-advertised, come before you all, so yeah, I'm pretty sure that would have to occur. That's a significant change. So, yeah. Comment period again, 45 days, all of that, so.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I know that time is money. I was the director of development of the city. But we also need to make sure that how we present zoning township is appropriate, so we can find a balance between those two.
So.
We still voting?
We
I mean, Randy and I mean, same page with Randy. I mean, it's not that we don't think it's it's a great use, but it's just that what if, or, you know, kind of makes you worry. When it makes your back go up, that's what it's like. But I mean, I support the commission of use trying to fit. I mean, I think that's the best route to go at this point because we're all on easy on changing it. So.
You just get confused. We don't follow the supervisor saying, we don't know what to do.
You know, we're concerned.
Well, you had met with us previously for an informal discussion. I believe you had the same thing with the supervisor. You didn't have this document put in their hand when you last met with them either. So now it's been formalized and very specific.
Had direction,
No. Play the ball. Member of the planning commission. Specific, that's the super. To summarize Randy's, since we've had a little discussion here, it's basically to not approve the text amendment as presented for by right in the C3, but a recommendation that it be a conditional use in C3. And with that, we had the motion by Randy, the second by Jerry. So we will vote if no further discussion. So Jerry and I, Randy, Sarah, Jason, I, and myself and I. So the motion passes 5 in favor of the motion.
Sure, I'll just.
One of the partners of it, we've seen how much. Here, you just have to look at the first. Color.
Easier to see. That's one comment. To work with staff to do a text.
So,
Yeah.
well, that's not, or the supervisors are not seeing the final product, to my knowledge, in a formal meeting, their review and discussion. I don't know if they've seen it individually. Maybe not, you know. happen until after this meeting, but the specifics. Yeah,
I think there was a discussion at the supervisors meeting about some of the conditions that
They
they.
didn't seem to be, it's a supervisor weren't on board with any, I mean, not 100% agree for it.
and I don't think the planning commission had any. So you weren't here, Randy, that meeting. I don't think the planning commission had any different opinion than we did
We were still on the same page.
previously. Consistent position from the previous informal, briefing with that. And now the details just made it more specific. But thank you. Next item on the agenda, are briefing items. Are there any?
No.
Other business? None. So last item is adjournment. Do I have a motion to adjourn? Whoever made the motion and moved it. We have a second?
I'll second that.
And Jason the second. All those in favor? All five. Thank you.